Chris, to see a young man so articulate, so solid in his faith, and I don't know, clear-eyed about what needs to be done, why we're doing what we're doing, why he believes what he believes. It's just a big encouragement to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the battle is massive. That he's in, that Turning Point USA, on college campuses, especially. I mean, that is really the heart of the beast,
Yeah, and one
Danielle.
of the things he said that, he talked about the fact that as the conservative movement gets bigger and more vocal, the other side gets bigger and more vocal, or maybe not bigger, but more vocal, and they get more attention. And that is, again, that's just a tactic of the enemy. I mean, obviously, the devil has no interest in seeing all of these powerful young men and women come into a recognition of how powerful they truly are, and that they actually do have more power than the enemy. He doesn't want them to know that. That's why silencing people has been the number one tactic of this entire decade.
Exactly. Because the enemy does not want us to know how powerful we really are. And for that reason, uh, the enemy wants us to be separated from God, because really that's how we know and learn how powerful we really are together, is through our relationship with God. So you're exactly right, Danielle. We are more powerful, but they don't want us to know that. Um, and what's going on at Loyola right now, as far as the chapter there?
It's an
Uh,
embarrassment.
it is a complete and total embarrassment, to everything that academic institutions are supposed to stand for. I mean, do they not understand that they are defiling the very purpose of their existence traditionally? And that's supposed to be the bastion of free expression, college universities, where you can explore every idea, every thought, and come to your own conclusions. Basically, they're supposed to be teaching you how to think, not what to think. And they're doing just the opposite.
Yeah,
You
a
know,
1000%. And Chris, you might know this because you have college age boys, but do top scholarships accepted at some of these private institutions? Do they go toward your tuition?
I
Maybe not
believe,
covering all of it, because
I
that would
believe they do.
surely be an Achilles heel for silencing speech.
Yeah, I believe they do, Danielle. Yeah, I want to give the email address, if I could, while I have it, to the president of Loyola. His name is Dr. Xavier Cole, and
If you
he,
spell it, I'll put it up, Chris.
yeah, it's Xavier,
Mm-hmm.
and the last name is Cole, Cole. He's the president of Loyola University, and his email is PR
PRES.
at LOYNO dot edu. And I would encourage people to send him an email to Dr. Cole and express your displeasure with the institutional censorship that's occurring at Loyola University, in banning TPUSA from their campus. I mean, it's interesting. Dr. Cole's dissertation for his PhD was titled "An Examination of the Development of Lay Leadership on Jesuit Catholic University Campuses." How mission and identity programs at U.S. Jesuit universities prepare future lay leaders. Well, I would suggest to Dr. Cole that if this is how you're preparing future lay Catholic leaders in the Jesuit tradition, you are horribly failing at your job. Horribly failing at your job. And it's time to read something that St. Ignatius Loyola, perhaps the spiritual exercises, perhaps a biography of Ignatius Loyola, so you can learn something about what he really taught and what he really believed, because you're defiling his legacy. You are defiling his legacy by allowing this to occur on your campus and not saying anything about it.
Yeah.
It's a disgrace.
And you know what, Chris? I think as we look at these universities, you see the problem seems so insurmountable, right? These Marxist minded professors are entrenched in the not only in the classroom but in the administration, and the entire bureaucratic apparatus is pretty infiltrated. The only thing I can think of, I mean, obviously a move of God, but the groundswell of students being so opposed and so rebellious against those kinds of teachings we'll flush them out, because we there's no flushing them out from the outside. Jeff Landry can't do anything. He can't fire all the professors. He can't fire the president of the university, who he's got a contract. So or she he I think has a contract. So it's up to the students to rise up and become so insufferably righteous, so insufferably opposed to these teachings that they just want to leave on their own.
Exactly, exactly. Can you imagine if there were droves of people who followed Garrett's example
Well,
and
there's one. Yeah,
just left college and
that's
went
right.
and did something else, and combined with big donors just not giving money to the universities anymore, Danielle, as you mentioned before the show, I think that would get their attention. But ultimately and fundamentally, I think you're right. This is about students who associate with these other students on campuses changing hearts and minds, and that's ultimately what will cause, I think, the change. Governor Landry can put a band-aid on it. He might be able to do something to force the school to allow the chapter, or to get a statue of Charlie Kirk down at LSU, that sort of thing. But ultimately, that's just putting a band-aid on it. That's not really changing the hearts and the minds, and that's what we need. And really, that's what Charlie Kirk was all about.
Yeah. And you know what else we could really strongly suggest, Chris, is that the legislature starts putting some parameters around how funds get sent to these universities. I mean, if you're promoting DEI, you shouldn't be getting funds. If you're promoting anti-constitutional principles, you shouldn't get funds from the state. I mean, why should the taxpayers be funding the indoctrination of our own children?
Exactly. Why should taxpayers be funding the institutional censorship of constitutionally protected speech? Why should we be funding that, Danielle? I think that would be a great subject for legislation. No question about it. Yeah, we're the state legislature. We can't control what purely private institutions do. That is a fair statement. But if you are relying in whole or in part on federal or state money, our money, that makes you a quasi public institutions, and we can absolutely impose constraints upon your ability to bludgeon the Constitution, and not pay a price for it.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, there's a couple things that have been going on otherwise in the state. We just concluded a special session, which was kind of below the radar. What happened?
Well, nothing really, except the legislature
Sounds
moved.
useful.
Yeah, the legislature moved the primary date, 2026 primaries, from April to May, so that the U.S. Supreme Court, can make a decision on the constitutionality of Cleo Field's district here, and really the constitutionality of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act altogether, and give the legislature time to redraw a constitutionally acceptable map. And that's basically all that occurred. There was a bill that Mike Bayham brought that we talked about a show or two ago, that would have required there to be a final runoff if in a primary, no candidate gets a majority of the votes. Now they can still go in on a plurality, but his bill would have required a final runoff among the top two vote getters, and his bill didn't go through. So hypothetically, as of now, if Cassidy looks at his Senate race and realizes, well, I can't win a Republican primary under any circumstances, and I believe that's the case. He knows he can't, so I'm going to get out of the Republican Party before qualifying, and I'm going to become just unaffiliated and no party. I'm going to skip the primary, and then I'm automatically going to be in the general election with the winner of the Democrat primary and the winner of the Republican primary, and I'll be in it as an unaffiliated. And if I can squeak out enough votes from the Democrat and enough votes from moderate Republicans, then I can squeeze back into the U.S. Senate on a plurality. I don't even have to get a majority. Baham's bill would have precluded that and required a final runoff in that scenario.
Why
Uh,
did it not pass, Chris?
I
What kind of treachery?
There were, because of Republicans. Because
Well,
of
no kidding.
Republicans. The reason why, as a matter of principle, we supported the legislation, the reason why we were not overly involved in it is because it's my view that Bill Cassidy is dead in the water no matter what he does. I don't think he has a chance, but I still, yeah, I don't understand why Republicans would
But on
not have,
principle, this is a
yeah.
bill that should have just gone through. I mean, even if it's just for self-preservation of self-interested politicians.
Exactly, exactly. But you have to understand also, Danielle, we're dealing with a legislature, at least the leadership in the state Senate, that tried to sneak in an amendment to a bill last session that would have eliminated the second Republican primary altogether to help
That's
Bill
so
Cassidy.
disgusting.
So
You're
he could
right.
have just won, he could have gotten into the general election on a plurality without even having to go through a
So
second
it's Cameron
Republican primary.
Henry,
Yeah, I'm sure
basically.
it's Cameron Henry. And obviously our governor, Jeff Landry, I guarantee you he didn't weigh in on this. There's
Well, you
no,
know what? It's surprising he didn't, because didn't he put up Representative Julie Emerson to run for Senate?
I don't have any empirical data to, confirm that, but he probably did.
Probably.
But,
I mean, they've been working hand in glove since he got the governorship,
yeah, I don't think she would have gotten in the race if he had not given it his
encouraged it.
blessing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think so. Speaking of which, Danielle, I think that that probably hurts on balance. Her entry into the race probably hurts Blake Miguez because they're both from Acadiana. They're both from that area over there. And I know that Julie Emerson is pretty well thought of there. And I think by and large, she's been a pretty good legislator, by no means perfect, believe me, but she's done some good things in the legislature, particularly as it comes to the pro-life issue, school choice issues, and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how her entry plays out here. But I don't think that Blake Miguez is probably thrilled that she's in the race.
Well, I it never fails to amaze me how Republicans can crowd out our own field and seem to play some kind of circular firing squad when it comes to elections. It makes no sense to me, but we'll see. I mean, at least we have a Republican primary, right?
At least we have a Republican primary, Danielle, but I couldn't agree more that, this internecine warfare that has always crippled our party because so few are willing to put the best interests of the state, the best interests of the Constitution, the best interest of the citizens before their own personal ambition. And that is the root of so much of our problems in Republican politics.
Yeah.
Selfishness and personal ambition triumph over what is best for the good, for our state, the greater good, routinely over and over and over again. So quite frankly, when you have a guy like John Fleming, and I've disclosed that LaCag and I support John Fleming for the U.S. Senate for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is that he's one of the few public figures in the last 20 years who actually made a decision based upon the best interest of our state rather than his own personal ambition, because he was going to run against Mary Landrieu a number of years ago, and he probably would have become a U.S. Senator then, but he did not run because the now ignominious Bill Cassidy announced that he was going to run against Mary Landrieu. And we didn't know anything about Bill Cassidy at the time. But John Fleming specifically decided not to run because he thought his entry would crowd the field and increase the likelihood that Mary Landrieu would return to Washington, D.C. So he subordinated his own personal ambition for the good of the state. We need more people who do things like that. rather than simply see what's in it for me, what's in it for me. That's the nature of the problem.
Yeah. Well, speaking of what's in it for me, there's a lot of missing what's in it for me from the New Orleans budget. There's a huge shortfall thanks to Latoya the Destroyer. And she now has her hat in her hand, and as she's going to the state saying, look, we don't know what happened to this money. We can't be held responsible. Can you please pick up the tab for my big bill?
What an absolute fiscal mess. We have a
It
chief
was $160 million.
well, the chief administrative officer under Cantrell 6 months ago said that we'll have a $160 million or $125 million surplus at the end of the year. So now it went from that to 125, $130 million debt. How does that occur? This is just a fiscal mess in New Orleans. They tax every possible thing they can tax. They have a massive GDP, a massive budget. Yet
Some places you can't even find pavement. You go into parts of the quarter, it's literally dirt roads because they've done no work on the roads. Where is that money going?
where is the money going? And it is absolute fiscal mismanagement that is occurring there in New Orleans. So if they want the state to bail them out, then there have to be, as Paul Hurd has said, suggested to us, there've got to be some conditions associated with this. They have to surrender, temporarily surrender management of their budget to the state, to the attorney general, to our governor, to our treasurer. Uh, Give the state control over your finances for a period of time. You need to enter into a binding financial agreement whereby you agree to prioritize crime, roads, and critical infrastructure needs in New Orleans that you have to spend the money on, you have to prioritize, and things like that. But the idea of New Orleans being able to come to the coffers of the state, get bailed out, and continue to do things exactly the way they've been doing them for 50 years that have put them in this rut is absolutely not acceptable.
The state has to mandate a forensic audit and a criminal investigation.
Yes, Danielle, I'm so glad you brought that. There needs to be an independent third party Doge audit of every aspect of the fiscal affairs of the city of New Orleans. Speaking of which, isn't that the reason why Governor Landry commissioned and formed Louisiana Doge? Wouldn't this be a perfect opportunity for Louisiana Doge to get involved in this, make sure this audit, a meaningful, deep audit occurs and correct the problem at the root here? I haven't heard anything from Louisiana Doge on this, but how do you do anything to solve this problem if you don't know what the source of the problem is?
That's
And
right.
how can you learn that if you're not doing a deep forensic dive into this? How can you possibly learn that?
Yeah. And Chris, I seem to recall maybe, I'm pretty sure I recall Dr. Cade Brumley coming on the show, or maybe it was John Fleming coming on the show and talking about the fact that they were able to put some fiscal watch on the New Orleans school system. They did it on all the public schools, right? And so there was
Yes.
a huge leakage, if I recall, fiscal leakage, a really, really bad shortfall of the New Orleans schools, public school system, uh, until this happened. And now they have the ability to watch those funds. The entire public has the ability to watch those funds. So why shouldn't the same exact thing be done to the city's affairs?
Across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board. Transparency and accountability across the board. But as long as we're in a
I want to
situation,
know how much money Latoya expenses every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, let's just start there. How much is she spending on her personal transportation? Like if we start adding those things up, how many contracts have been awarded to family members and friends, close associates? These are things that need to be tracked down.
no doubt about it. I don't think there's ever been an institution or an entity in our state that has operated for so long with so little accountability and so little transparency.
Except
Uh,
for the government. I will just say, except for the entire government.
yeah, so I guess the city of New Orleans is perhaps a microcosm of the government as a
Exactly.
whole. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the government is well managed.
Yeah, but clearly, as long as the fox is guarding the hen house in New Orleans, nothing will change. So I think Paul Hurd is 100% correct. We shouldn't be bailing them out unless we attach very significant enforceable conditions to that bailout.
Yeah, and maybe this needs to be a call to action, Chris.
Yeah,
Maybe it can go to the Senate Finance, or appropriations. Maybe who's going to have to sign off on this ultimately. I guess it'd be appropriations and Governor Landry, in
yeah,
Senate Finance. So maybe
yeah.
we should
That's
point some
those would
messaging
be
to
the
them.
yeah, those would be the committees, and I think, that would be, you know, and I don't know, to be honest with you, whether or not Governor Landry has weighed in on this, but, he needs to weigh in on this. It's that
Yeah,
important. New
yeah,
Orleans
it
is a
is.
hugely important city in our state, and it's just not what it should be. Not what it
No,
should be.
absolutely. People should feel safe to go there again. As just
Absolutely.
as a starting point. We will be back here on Tuesday, picking up the hot topic of carbon capture and sequestration, and related issues in Louisiana, with an attorney, Alan Pesnell. I believe he's one bringing the case for a coalition of people who are trying to get this nonsense of eminent domain stopped, before their property gets seized.
Yeah, that is a hugely, hugely important suit. I don't know if the suit's dropped yet or not, Danielle, but I know that it will be. And yeah, and the core issue in that case is whether or not carbon capture sequestration, the use of eminent domain for carbon capture sequestration, whereby these private organizations are allowed to seize private property for this venture, whether or not that violates the Louisiana Constitution's core right of private property. And it's a big issue, and I think they've got a very strong case. If it's handled right and there's a fair decision made on it. So, and it will have implications across the state. So it's a huge, huge case. I don't think there's any issue in the state right now, Danielle, that is more important than the issue of carbon capture sequestration because it directly impacts our money because this enterprise is being subsidized with billions of dollars of our money. It impacts our property rights, as we just talked about, and it impacts the health of our citizens because of the potential dangers associated with permanently burying CO2 under the ground when mixed with water and salt becomes carbonic acid, which is a carcinogen. It's toxic. And so all of those issues are entwined in carbon capture sequestration. That's why it's such a huge, huge issue in the state. So anyway, but yeah, I look forward to talking with Alan.
Yeah, it should be a great interview, and we'll have more info. Isn't there, I believe there's a hearing coming up, Chris? Is there another town hall coming up on maybe November 4th? I could be making that up.
Yeah, no, there is one coming up on November 4th. I don't know exactly where it is, but we'll be posting about these things on our Facebook page, LeCag, and then at LeCag on our X page as well. So there'll be plenty of information out there about that. But I really do feel, Danielle, that the pendulum is starting to swing way back in favor of Louisiana citizens on this issue. And I really think that as goes carbon capture sequestration and as goes whether or not the candidates are going to really express publicly how they feel about this and commit to a position, so goes their candidacy and their campaigns. I think people are going to be paying very close attention to this.
Yeah, well, I want to see this issue get so big that that pendulum hits some politicians square in the face, because I just think the treachery, the absolute disdain for the public that these politicians have shown while they have sold us down the river, a river that's soon to be poisoned by carbon, uh, under pressure carbon that becomes carbonic acid. I'm just so frustrated by the whole thing. So I do want to see some serious political fallout whenever the people win on this.
Oh, and there and will be, and we will continue to publicize how, our Republican legislators voted on critical issues related to carbon capture sequestration, because we shouldn't be in this position, Danielle. We should not be in this position where citizens across the state, particularly in rural communities, are having sleepless nights, night after night after night, wondering whether or not they really are sovereigns and masters of their own property. That should
That's right.
not be occurring in our state. Our legislature had an opportunity to take care of this, and they failed to do so, despite the heroic efforts of some of them. And there was a guy that I met at a town hall the other night, Danielle, who has land in, I believe it's Kinder. He has not slept in 8 months. He has not slept in 8 months because of this looming threat over generational property in his family. Think about that. And it
It's
makes me wonder how politicians are able to sleep at night.
They sleep on a pile of cash, Chris. You didn't know that?
Well, I guess it's very soft and very comfortable, but
Yeah.
there's something in the Psalms that say, you may lie on your comfortable beds and lounge on your comfortable couches for now, but there will be a day of reckoning and a day of justice. And I believe that it's coming on this issue in this state at this time. What a great time to be alive, Danielle.
It is. It is.